are you ready to make some like legit predictions for 2024?
I'll do one. Can I do one real quick? Lithium has to rally. Lithium has gotten beat up hardcore this year. I think it's down something like 70% from 2022 to now.
What's caused that?
Near-term overproduction, a little bit of bearishness in the EV market. And it's not to say that the EV market is shrinking. It's just not growing as fast as they were expecting. There's still like record numbers of electric vehicles are being sold, and they're breaking records monthly. It's just that it didn't quite meet expectations, and of course what happens, people start to panic, and lithium prices fell from $70,000 a ton down to like the low 20s, which is insane.
That should be good for the car producers, though.
That's a buy.
Yeah,
for sure.
So that's a simple one right there.
Hello, welcome to the annual Angel Research Podcast Predictions episode. Okay, I'm here with Alex Koyfman and Brian Hicks. My name's Jason Freiert, and let's jump right into it with a review of last year's predictions episode. Brian, you want to start? I think we had a prediction that the market was going to be up big, and you were pretty close, not quite there, but...
Right. Well, let me start off by saying that when I made that prediction, every pundit and talking head on Wall Street was calling for 2023 to be a disaster for the markets. Inflation was high, rates were going up, sort of uncertainty about the war, and they all called for, sort of a brutal bear market and a brutal recession. And if you don't believe me, this is I printed this out this morning. This is a clip from Bloomberg, where they published this in early July of this year. And July is a very important month because when I made my prediction in November of 2022, I said the markets, S&P 500, NASDAQ, the Dow, and Bitcoin were all going to be up for the year. And I made a prediction for the S&P 500, which is the broad-based index, was going to be up around 24 to 25% for 2023. From January of this year to July of this year, the market got as high as 19%, pulled back for various reasons, but the biggest reason was the attack on October 7th in Israel. It has bounced back since, and it's now currently up 16% for the year. The Dow, which I think I predicted was going to be up around 12 to 15% for 2023, got as high as 7% by July. It's now around 6% for the year. The NASDAQ has blown away all expectations. I had it going as high as the same as S&P 500, around 24, 25%. In July of this year, it was up almost 40% in 7 months. It's currently at 34%. The way things are going right now, I expect it to go back up to around 40% at the end of the year. The big surprise, and maybe the big winner, and maybe the biggest surprise, was Bitcoin. If you recall, and maybe we can just show a clip of that, I said that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies were at a bottom. Like some of these strong hands are not just folding their cards, but they're actually going bankrupt.
So where's the bottom then?
I think the bottom rate. I would say I think the bottom's happening right now.
So buy?
I would be a buyer. Yeah.
I mean, it's been pretty negative over the past week. So, and I just tell people to zoom out because.
But I'm not a crypto buyer, though. I'm not a believer.
Well, in theory.
In theory. I didn't expect it. I didn't predict it to double, but Bitcoin has basically doubled since that call.
Yeah, it was about 16,000 when we recorded that, and it just broke 37. I think it's settling 36,000. So,
right.
And I think we all were in agreement that it looked like there was like epic negativity on Bitcoin.
There was
at
a
that
super
time.
fear.
It was just like there was no way.
People thought it was going to go away.
Yeah, and so and like the contrarian thinkers that we are, that's when you buy. What do you think of Brian's predictions, Koyfman? Do you think they were good?
I mean, yeah, it seems like they've panned out.
And keep in mind, though, it's not like we're saying that you have a crystal ball, per se. You just are looking at what you see out there and reacting to the mainstream and pretty much doing the opposite.
Well, look, you have to look at the market two ways, quantitatively and qualitatively. And qualitatively meaning you have to look at market psychology, okay? And when you see extreme moments of fear, like we did at the end of last year and in February and March of 2020 over COVID, when the market sold off and people literally thought it was the end of the world, that's when textbooks are being written about. That's when you should have bought. And it was. I'm not saying it was an easy call, but it was a call that if you read the history books, the same patterns were playing out again. So I loaded up. I loaded up on a lot of things, and I didn't sell in July when the market topped this past July, but I started buying again in the past month. So I've been adding to positions because I think the market's going to be up again in 2024 and in 2025, barring a black swan event like a nuclear exchange.
Right.
Okay.
And we one of the things we discussed heavily at that time was the war in Ukraine, and you had some choice words about Putin and
I don't remember what I said exactly. But yeah, it's
so
kind of out of the
but
news cycle now.
Now it's like that's not even. It seems to have turned, and because everybody's focused on Israel and Gaza, is that what's your prediction for next year in terms of these global geopolitical events?
What's my prediction for what's going on in the Middle East?
Are we actually going to have a World War III, or are we already in it, as our friend Jason Simpkins thinks we're in? Basically,
I
World
don't
War
think
III
that there's going to be much ambiguity as far as World War III goes. I think we're going to kind of know it.
It's going to be hot.
Yeah,
it's going to be hot.
I think what's going to happen is the conflict in the Middle East is slowly going to fade out of the news cycle. Also, there's going to be probably a ceasefire of some sort. It's going to get quiet for a while, and then Hamas is going to do another attack, and they're going to get bombed again, and it's going to keep going on and on and on forever. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but yeah, I think that's never going to stop. As far as driving the markets, I think it only drives the markets in terms of panic, and the panic has sort of subsided, right? We saw there was an immediate response after October 7th, and people are slowly starting to get used to it, for lack of a better word. So right now, I think a bigger issue for the world isn't the war itself; it's all the protests going on everywhere. So that's going to cause, and I think that was the point of the Hamas attacks. Actually, that's not really even an opinion; that's fact. They knew what they did, and they knew, and why did they do it? Because the response that they were going to elicit is going to create the larger
and they're hoping
conflict.
to galvanize people for their cause around.
Sure,
around
of
the
course.
world.
I mean, their weapons are ineffective. Their best weapons are, images of dead babies. That's their number one. And the more dead babies they generate through the Israeli response, the more effective their attacks are. So that's how it works.
It wasn't. I'm not saying that it was surprising, but man, who's manufacturing all these Palestinian flags? Like it was like ready. As soon as it happened, like the printing press just went into overdrive.
So you're bullish on flag makers?
No, but what I'm saying,
It's the
paper
Jordanian
companies?
flag minus the star.
right? But no,
So-
what I'm saying was like it seems around, especially Western nations, there was already like this bubbling of, I want to protest. I need something to protest about,
Yeah.
and they got it.
Yeah, it's been a
Because
while
when I was
since
in,
it's been
I just got back from Amsterdam, and on Sunday, we were going to the Van Gogh Museum, and we had to take a different route to Van Gogh because there was, 40,000 protesters in the streets. The protest started as a climate change protest, okay?
Yeah.
And then it morphed into a pro-free Palestine protest. And both sides were fighting each other.
One side was probably a bit outnumbered, wasn't it?
Oh, the climate definitely were. The climate protesters way outnumbered the Palestinian protesters.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because I think it was a scheduled climate change protests.
They were
So the
trying to
climate
co-opt
change
it.
was fighting the pro-Palestinian.
So behind the Van Gogh Museum there's this big park, and after they did their march, they all sort of settled in there. And I was watching them from the Van Gogh Museum, and I could hear them. I could hear like the people speaking, saying, "This is not a political protest. Calm down," and because they were trying to get order back because the Palestinians wanted to turn it into that protest, but it was a climate change. Stealing attention, right, exactly.
And the Van Gogh was probably worried about the climate guys coming in and trying to destroy priceless art. Isn't that what they do now?
You know what? That crossed my mind. It did. But there was a pretty big police presence on the streets and around the museum, for sure.
Excellent. So let's hop back in for. Are you ready to make some like legit predictions for 2024?
I'll do one. Can I do one real quick? Lithium has to rally. Lithium has gotten beat up hardcore this year. I think it's down something like 70% from 2022 to now.
What's caused that?
Near-term overproduction, a little bit of bearishness in the EV market. And it's not to say that the EV market is shrinking. It's just not growing as fast as they were expecting. There's still like record numbers of electric vehicles are being sold, and they're breaking records monthly. It's just that it didn't quite meet expectations, and of course what happens, people start to panic, and lithium prices fell from $70,000 a ton down to like the low 20s, which is insane.
That should be good for the car producers, though.
That's a buy.
Yeah,
for sure.
So that's a simple one right there. It's not going anywhere. Obviously, we all need it. We all have cell phones and laptops.
Right, but you're also exploring these. Like, would they say they're lithium alternatives, or are they more just like additives to produce the efficiency?
Well, lithium for the most part is going to probably stay the key cathode material. It's just that they're going to make improvements to other components of the battery, like the electrolyte is going to become solid state, and Toyota's working on that. Still a lithium-based battery though. So
right, so lithium's not going anywhere.
Probably not anytime immediately. Even graphene batteries, almost all graphene batteries in existence today still use lithium. So it's not probably going to fade away for at least until the end of the decade. I would say it's going to be. I would say probably in the $30,000 to $40,000 a ton range is what we should be averaging from now until 2030.
Yeah, because even just a year ago, it was lithium shortage. There's like this mad.
But it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there. It's just the public perception is sort of a little bit, well, as it always is. It's skewed. We still need it. There's still a deficit. There's still, we're going to be needing it more and more, and there's going to be less and less being produced. Pretty much for the foreseeable future, even with this huge discovery in Nevada-Oregon border and McDermott caldera. So yes, lithium is a buy.
Is it still are electric vehicles still the driver of that, or do we got like utility scale batteries? Like
they're the primary driver, but everything else is going to obviously is
right.
Just wireless devices, distributed energy storage, all that stuff needs batteries. So, but EVs, yeah, it's just with all the mandates in Europe, they're just canceling. Like by the end of the decade, a bunch of countries in Europe are going to stop selling ICEs.
Well, is it Sweden that basically made the incentives so warped that you would be just silly not to buy an electric vehicle?
Not
Norway.
Not sure. Norway.
One of those.
Well, Norway,
I don't want to mix up our Norwegian
Norway
friends.
They're stopping internal combustion engine sales, like consumer sales, by 2025.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Jaguar is halting production of gas vehicles, and that's Jaguar. It's like a luxury brand, performance cars.
Across the board, like you're no longer going to be able to get
no more gas powered Jaguars by
really
like 2 or 3
anywhere in
years.
the world.
Well, they're going to stop manufacturing them. Yeah.
Wow, I feel like that might be a collector's item. Are you going to go on? You're a Porsche guy, but you going to go in on a Jaguar? The last ICE Jaguar?
I mean, as an investment?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe. Who knows? Probably not.
Hey.
Seems like a...
Well, Amsterdam, everybody was telling me it was a bicycle economy, and there's one bicycle for every citizen resident in Amsterdam, so there's like over 1 million bicycles, but there are still a ton of cars.
Right.
And I did notice a lot of electric cars. The one thing because I've talked to a bunch of the locals there, the one thing I did notice was a lack of charging stations.
Right.
So you would have these historic long Amsterdam roads with I don't know, say 50 cars, and you only see one charger on that road. So and I was watching all the commercials, and they were talking about how some of these rapid chargers from the UK are now penetrating the Netherlands market. So I think that's going to be probably another big market for the EV market is charging stations and installing charging stations. But I think I told you the whole transportation system in Amsterdam is wild. And it took me a couple of days to figure it out, to be honest with you. So you have pedestrian lane, and you can't leave the pedestrian lane unless you're going to go to another pedestrian lane. Beside that, you have bicycle lane, and beside that, you have car lane, and each lane is crazy heavy, like in terms of traffic. And if you try to cut in, if you try to walk,
you're gonna get clipped.
You're gonna get clipped.
So do people have to have like blinkers to indicate that they're changing lanes?
Yeah,
when they're
bicycles actually had stoplights and green lights.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
They
heard
should have those here.
I heard drunk biking is a big issue over there.
But they were super aggressive.
Yeah.
If you didn't follow the rules, they barked at you. And I found that the drivers of the cars were actually nicer than the people who were riding the bicycles. It was coming from America and then going there, it was pretty wild. It took me a while. Like I said, it took me a couple of days to figure it out. And my daughter actually had to tell us because she's there now, had to tell us all the rules.
Right.
And I thought she was bullshitting, to be honest with you. I was like, no way, man.
Wait, so they have pedestrians, actually, they're controlling pedestrian traffic.
Yeah.
Like people walking.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, like there are rules and stuff.
And there are
you can't change
times
lanes.
when the pedestrian sidewalk is so thin that only one
line.
One line. And
You got single file.
Yeah, single
Jesus.
file. Yeah.
They're training them well.
Is it big enough to contain like a fat ass? You get like coming.
No.
Yeah. That. What were some of the other culture shocks from being over there?
Oh well. So we ate super well, and the food there, like I haven't ate. The food there just seemed cleaner in terms of ingredients, taste. Portion sizes are a lot smaller than they are in America.
Yeah.
Like I would go get a cup of coffee, and it'd be literally like a half a cup of coffee, and that would be like just. There were no small, mediums, and larges.
Just one.
It was just one universal size, and I'd be like, "What the fuck am I going to do with this?" Right? I have to order 5 of them. So it was. I didn't go into these cities with an agenda, but between Iceland and Amsterdam, I only saw 4 homeless people on the streets, only 4, and it got me thinking to the point where I actually Googled it, and one of the first articles came up was, why do you see so few homeless in Amsterdam? And there are a myriad of reasons why you don't, and I'm not saying there aren't homeless. But you don't see, tent encampments. I never got approached by somebody asking for money, ever. I was there for 10 days. As you know, Jason, we can walk down to M&T Stadium where the Ravens play. It's a 15, 20-minute walk. How many times are we going to get approached?
I mean, at least 15.
At least 15.
Yeah.
If you leave the city, if you leave our office and go to 95, you take MLK Boulevard, how many tent encampments do you see?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I didn't see any of that in Europe. I've heard UK has the same problem as we do, but at least where I went in Iceland and in the Netherlands, I didn't see any of it.
So what were the reasons?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that they just don't put up with it.
What do you do to them?
They
ship them out.
They ship them out.
Where?
No one knows.
No one knows.
Oh, boy.
Well, they have shelters, but we have shelters here too. That's what I couldn't figure out.
Yeah, but they'll kick them out during the day, and I guess to find jobs. But The problem is they're so far gone that they can't really function.
But I
either.
also checked, like, the homeless rate in Amsterdam and the Netherlands is crazy low.
Yeah.
Nothing like it is here. Nothing like it is here.
So more of a social safety net.
I think, well, if you Google what are the top 10 happiest nations in the world, they're all Scandinavian nations. Yeah. America's 15, but there has to be some sort of psychological element to why there's so many drug addicts on our streets, so many homeless on our streets, and you don't see them in Scandinavian countries. And I don't think socialism is the answer.
I think that one element is that we have a ton of veterans in this country, way more than any of those countries do, and the rate of mental illness in the veteran community, PTSD, all that stuff, that is one reason. Definitely, I'm not saying that that's the primary reason, but I think that drives it. They don't fight as many wars as we do.
It's possible.
Although, if you go to Kensington, Philadelphia, I'm not sure how many veterans are on there.
Well, they all claim to be veterans.
They all claim to be veterans?
Yeah, all of them. On their signs, they're all veterans.
So it's good timing for this because big news yesterday was that, there was no rise in CPI month over month, the lowest CPI number in 2 years, I guess. What does that mean for the rest of the year and next year? Has inflation peaked?
I think it's peaked.
Peaked, and where does it go? Are they gonna keep interest rates where they're at for now? And how is that? Because I think the last time they had massive inflation that they were fighting, they sort of started cutting rates too early, and I think it seems like they're not going to do that this time because they're worried about a resurgence in inflation.
Well, look. It corrected itself, okay? Prices were so high, people started to pull back,
right?
Okay,
they weren't buying electric cars as much as they thought. I guess.
Exactly. Instead of a leather seats in Alex's car, he got cloth seats.
He wouldn't dare
do that.
No, but I think credit card debt is I think it's at a record high.
It's rising, yeah.
And so there's going to be a pullback. Rising prices corrects spending. So there's going to be a pullback. There's going to be an increase in savings, and then at some point the Fed's going to want to stimulate saving, or not saving, buying, spending.
Yeah. And
so they'll do that by dropping rates. And so I think the next couple years, in my opinion, it's going to be very, very bullish for the markets. The only caveat that I will say is and I don't, when we were in World War II, Alex, did we know that we were in World War II? Did we call it World War II in 1941 and 1942? Or did we call it afterwards?
Ben Affleck in Pearl Harbor said, I think World War II just started, but I don't think they did that until several years into it, maybe, or even afterwards.
So that's what I'm thinking, is that we are in World War III, and we won't call it World War III until, universally call it World War III until probably a year or two from now.
Right.
And wars are a drain on a lot of things, and they're a drain on industrial metals, and that's why I'm very, very bullish on commodities right now. I think we're in a commodity super cycle. If you look at some of because we're going to have to rebuild cities. We're going to have to rebuild a lot of cities and towns. And
so you think that World War III is going to follow the World War I, World War II model, where major powers are actually killing each other? Because right now only one major power is directly involved in anything, right?
Right.
Yeah. We're supplying weapons to everyone.
Yeah, but
Chinese are too.
We're definitely involved. We're bombing Syria right now. But to get back to my point, if you look at things like cement makers, Cemex, the Mexican cement manufacturer and maker of all things cement, they're up 90% this year. So I think that's going to continue for a while. I think building steel, copper, cement, oil, gas, all that is going to be in a bull market for the next couple years at least. So
right around this time last year was the release of ChatGPT. And I don't think we discussed it at all because it was still brand new. So it's only been a year since it's been out, and it was 3.5, and now it's upgraded. What is the future for AI, at least in the near term? I mean, we've already seen tech companies pulling back on hiring and saying they're replacing people. How big of an impact is AI going to have?
Alex?
I mean, I think it's going to be pretty much ubiquitous. It's going to be like internet. What effect did internet have on the world?
Yeah,
It
changed
the
everything.
world completely. I don't think that it's going to put everyone out of work. I think that it's going to make a lot of people way more efficient.
Right.
It's going to probably accelerate progress in a lot of different areas, for sure. There's going to be a lot more bullshit out there. People are going to be creating content more and more and more now. Just more empty content, a lot more stuff to see, a lot more distractions. An old buddy of mine from childhood just started an AI venture that's doing stock analysis. So, I mean, that affects our business directly right there. I talked to him on the phone a couple days ago, and he said specifically, and he was adamant about it, this isn't putting anyone out of a job. This is just going to make you better at what you do. And so my optimistic sort of view on things is telling me that it's not the end of the world. It's going to make a lot of inefficient things gone, and it's going to make a lot of things better, I hope. So that's my view on it. As far as investments go, yeah, it's going to be huge. It's going to be another tech boom probably.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is the internet, at first there was the dot-coms. It's like, oh, if you had a website, you're worth $1 billion or whatever, pets.com and all that. But then it just became part of the landscape. Everyone had to have a website. They had to have an online presence. So just as such, everyone's going to have to utilize AI in their business. But then consumers are also going to have to, the way everybody kind of knows how to use a smartphone now, that's only 2006, 2007. And people know how to do all this. They're going to have to know how to interact with AI and know the pitfalls of it as well. So there's definitely going to be some people, the blockbusters, and that get left behind. So investment-wise, we have to avoid those, but then kind of make big bets on the ones that are going to
when you think
increase
about it,
efficiency.
It really is, just another evolution of creative destruction, right? Since I've been in this business, there's been various events where this has happened. One was the internet, the smartphone. How many industries did both of those technologies put out of business? A lot, right?
Certainly changed the landscape of newspapers and journalism.
Yeah, but how many industries are contained in your iPhone, in your smartphone, that used to be standalone industries? You don't see Polaroid anymore, or Kodak, or whatever. Whatever. It's the exact same thing. It's going to be almost AI is going to consolidate all these various industries into this one singular, technology. And I was talking to my daughter, and she's getting a philosophy degree, and she's sweating, graduation, because she graduates. This is next year will be her last year, and I was like, learn as much as you can about AI, and just get super proficient with it, because that is going to be, because you're gonna be using it every single day.
Absolutely,
in my opinion. So
that degree would have been useless 200 years ago, though. Philosophy, probably. I mean, how do you make money?
Well, there's a lot
that?
of ideas out there that understanding language and interacting, and not that philosophy, but yeah, things like philosophy, English, the more I wouldn't say the non-hard sciences are going to be more important. Communication is ever important in the world when, coders could be out of business because of AI,
There was a time, it wasn't too long ago, where something like half, I don't know if it was half, but, there was a good chunk of the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies all had a classical education, classical degrees. And I think, one of the arguments can be made is, study history, because that's where you see patterns. Patterns don't change. What changes is the technology changes. Human nature doesn't change. Okay, they adopt new technologies. We're killing each other right now, and we're going to continue to kill each other, but just with different technology. Okay, so once you understand sort of the base human emotions, fear, greed, love, hate, all that stuff. Once you master that, all you have to do is just understand that. Master the technologies that are going to control that. But yeah, I mean, it's there's. I always tell my kids, get a really good base education on just about everything. Whether it's a classical education, a philosophy, or whatever. Because a lot of the stuff that we do here, you can learn on the job. We do learn on the job. Okay, I didn't become a great writer in college until I got out into the workforce. I didn't become a good stock picker and market analyst in college. I did it after I got out of college and started working at these firms. So, and that's what I'm trying to. These kids think they have to, whatever they major in, that's what they have to do. That's bullshit. Okay, get a good base education on everything, and then when you get out into the field, then start to specialize, start to learn the things that's going to be expected of you.
Well, there seems to be this trend of almost over-education these days where there's less people entering the trades. Everybody has been told that they need to have a college degree or a master's or a PhD, and there's a bunch of PhDs out there that cannot find jobs in their gender studies career. And there's a lack of...
How do you apply that knowledge?
There's a lack of plumbers, carpenters in the trades, and you can not go to college, learn that trade, and make a very good living now. What is your most negative... What are you least bullish on or most bearish on going into next year? What should investors avoid?
That's a good question.
Sitting in cash? Being on the sidelines?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say the real estate market.
Okay.
I really think, and I pray to God that it's peaked out because what's going on even where I live in this sleepy little town.
So you're talking about residential,
yeah,
specifically,
right? Well, housing.
Yeah.
I mean, Greenville, Delaware. Who wants to live there? And yet, real estate prices are up like 40% over the last 3 years, and even with the interest rates.
Yeah, I mean, my notes here. Last time we did this. Mortgage rates were about 5%. They're now closing in on 8%.
Yeah, but they pulled back.
They pulled back a little bit.
Yeah.
I think because they think the rates are going to come down. You talk to people who bought houses in the 80s, and they're like, it was 15, 17%. Like, what are you whining about? Of course, the houses...
They paid off their loans back then.
Well, the houses were only $35,000, $40,000 for
Sure.
a starter family. So you think the prices are just going to come down?
No, I think I mean I don't know if they ever really come down. I mean,
well,
other than
there
the
needs to be
2008.
probably a higher
plateau.
unemployment. There needs to be higher unemployment so that people in foreclosures. I know foreclosures are going up, particularly actually in the commercial real estate, which I think is more of a negative side.
A lot of people are working from home.
Right.
But yeah, I think that there's no way it's sustainable. I mean, I go on Zillow, even though we just we just bought a new house. I still go on Zillow every day, and houses flying off the market. Like they're on the market for 2 or 3 days, and boom, and they're going for like 10-12% higher than list price.
Yeah,
it's
so it's
insanity.
still happening at this level of interest rates.
Which makes me think that it's unsustainable. And yeah, if you're probably real estate investing for residential real estate is what I would avoid and will.
Right.
So. That's my call.
I would say commercial real estate right now, but at some point it's going to be a buy.
Yeah.
But I still think there's still more pain to be felt in commercial real estate.
Well, we just about ended our lease in Baltimore that we had for a while, and that building is not very full. It's not like there's someone coming in right behind us where we were.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not mistaken that old building was bought by a REIT, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and they dropped a lot of money in renovations. So
AREP. I'm not sure if
I
they're
don't
public.
remember. Yeah.
American Realty.
Right.
Something. Yeah.
But I talked to a lot of people, and it was an Exelon or Constellation built a new building down in Harbor East, and opened right before COVID, right? And so that building, which was a beautiful modern day office building, my friend told me it's still pretty much vacant. So because they just can't get anybody to come back into the office after spending 2 years at home in their pajamas doing work. So
Yeah, the governments seem to be ramping up some mandates for federal and state employees to come back to the office. I think because they're seeing the impact of the cities that, the commerce is slowed in those cities. The lunch crowd is smaller.
But see, exactly, when an office building goes dark, vacant like that, there's a ripple effect on that local economy. Because when I was down there about a couple of weeks ago, there were a lot of eateries and restaurants that are no longer there anymore. And in our specific area here, you can tell there's a lot of places. Mount Vernon, Baltimore, used to be a thriving cultural neighborhood. It just feels dead to me. It just feels dead. And, I don't know what's going to bring that back. The only way it's going to come back is if people come back to the office, and that's it. So.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys joining us for our annual predictions episode. Is there any final prognostications you wish to make, either of you, as we head out? Do you have any predictions on what the Orioles are going to do next year? Are they gonna make it to the World Series? No.
I mean, that's such a, I don't know.
Oh,
I would say in the next 5 years they do, yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah, you're very confident on your market predictions and less so on your baseball predictions.
Well, you're dealing with personalities there and other, it's just, I mean, who would have thought the Texas Rangers would have basically ran the board in the postseason? So, but yeah, I like the Orioles odds for sure, and I was also liking the Ravens odds until this past Sunday.
I got two.
Yeah, man. Lay it out.
IPO market will hopefully bounce back.
I think
next year.
I think last year you were saying you were starting to make some big bets.
I made those bets
in the private markets.
Yeah, and they're still all private, and
right.
The reason they're not going public is just because why go public in this kind of atmosphere? So they're probably, I'm hoping 24, 25 it'll resurge and I'll be able to get out of some of those. So I think the next year, though, I mean, this year is just like a bottom for the IPO market. You can just see how many companies went public. Yeah. It's just sad to look at. Next year, it should start to bounce back. And my other bet is that Ovechkin won't break Gretzky's record.
He won't?
Will not.
Okay. You have any?
I'm gonna eat shit in 3 years. But
you have any inside info on that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about it.
So, an interesting thing about these predictions episodes is, one of the most visited clips on our YouTube channel was Brian's predictions last year, and you can follow the comments along based on how the market goes. So, early on, people were, basically shitting on your predictions, and then as the market slowly started coming up, people got silent, and then people came out and were shitting on the people that were shitting on it, and then back when we we had a pullback, people jump out. So people love to kind of be armchair quarterbacks, but that's what we're here to do, is make predictions, right? And to let our readers know where we think the market is going.
Well, I'll make a prediction right now. I'll make a solid prediction, a specific. So I'll just go with the S&P 500. I think the S&P 500 and the Dow are going to underperform the Russell.
Okay.
I think next year the Russell is pretty much flat for the year.
Yeah.
And I think, especially with the commodities super cycle unfolding, most of the commodity stocks are usually like small cap stocks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think next couple of years are going to be golden years for the Russell 2000 and small caps. However, I do think the S&P 500, they made a high. If you look back in the past three or 4 years, the high on the S&P 500 is 4,766. We're back flirting with that number again. We're around 4,600. The low was in 2022, which was 3586. Take the difference, add that to the high. We get a S&P 500 of 5,946. That's a 31% gain from today's levels. Okay, I don't know if it's going to happen next year, so don't hold me to that. But I think it's going to happen in the next 2 years, because there's a lot of things going on in the next year or two with the elections and the wars. But I think, based on technical analysis, based on market psychology, based on fundamentals, I think the markets are going to be up over the next 2 years.
One of the things we didn't mention about those gains is it seems to be driven largely by a lot of these mega caps. So I'm assuming that's your sort of reason for thinking the Russell is going to come back, because really some of the pullback has been in these larger stocks, but none of these smaller companies have really yet to run like they have in prior cycles.
Well, I was looking at the defense industry stocks, and if you look at the mega caps like the Lockheed Martins, they're either down or they're flat for the year. But the small caps, the mid caps in that sector, are up crazy this year. So I think that's going to continue in the next year, into the next year or two. Yeah, I'm not bearish. I'm bullish.
Excellent. Well, thanks, guys. That wraps up our predictions. I have one final prediction that proof of aliens will be released to the public in the next 12 months. Undeniable proof.
Wow.
Yeah, big prediction, huh? I'm here for it. Don't worry. It'll all be okay. Thanks again. Remember to like, subscribe, and give us your comments, whether you think these guys are full of shit or if you are going to be following their predictions again. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.